Do you ever go through your tough seasons in the office and then that pressure then becomes, "Ugh, I just hate that I'm a man in this moment"?
The seasons where, I've gone through like the most, and you're like, why am I doing this? What is all of this even for?
What do you think you had to leave behind about who you are?
You've got no other choice but to make things work and where you are. So the pressure to provide for men is a real thing because there's no one to cushion you.
Hi everyone, welcome to the first episode of Unspoken. I am so excited. Today we have a very special guest. So this is a colleague in the industry, but I think more importantly, this is a friend of mine. We've got Lungelo!
Hi. Hi to the viewers. Thank you, Mamello, for having me.
I think we had spoken off camera to basically say that you don't like putting yourself out there.
Yes.
So the sacrifice is not going without much appreciation. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're most welcome.
Okay, perfect. So everyone, today we'll be speaking about men and the pressure to provide, especially in silence, right? Because I think men bear this burden, which I think it's gendered, because as a woman, and I don't speak for everyone, but I think as a woman, when I think of hard work, none of that is anchored in that, oh, but I need to take care of other people. Of course, there are things that one would need to take care of by virtue of the circumstances that we are born into, etc., etc. But I don't think I have that engendered or that deep need that I think men on average, whether they're born into privilege or in other more unfortunate circumstances, generally have. So I thought to bring in my friend and colleague Lungelo to just help us understand this nuance as a man, So Lungelo, don't feel any pressure. I'm genuinely here to learn.
Yes.
My face is very expressive, but don't let that discourage you or cause you to change your mind on anything that you want to share. And please feel free to be as open as you want to be. But I think before we get into the depth of things, I like starting out the conversation with a small game.
Okay.
So it's called The Streets Are Saying.
Okay.
So it helps us get to know you a little bit better without doing the formal bio kind of thing.
Sure.
So how it works is that I'm going to ask you a question or I'm going to make a statement. And the only thing that you can say is I confirm or I deny.
Okay.
But you cannot justify.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. So the first one that we have for you is that the streets are saying you absolutely love flying SAA and don't seem to understand people who simply do not.
I confirm.
Okay, I'm not going to say anything to that. The streets are saying you have a strong sense of justice. The moral high ground is your hill.
I confirm.
Then the third and last question, or statement rather, is the streets are saying when it's time to retire, you intend to pack your bags and relocate to Knysna.
I deny.
Don't lie. I know you off camera. But honestly, welcome to Unspoken. I'm happy for us to get into this conversation because I think it's one that a lot of men will resonate with. And I think it's one where if women don't take the active effort to try and understand, it's something that I think it can completely go over our heads because our lived experience is so different. So Lungelo, I think I'm happy for us to start off with just the basic question of, when did you first realize that success is not just a luxury for you? It's something that absolutely has to happen.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mamello. Interesting question. So I would firstly say it probably started when I realized that I had certain giftings that my peers didn't necessarily have. And it's probably reaffirmed by people telling you. So with that comes a sense of duty to want to faithfully steward whatever those giftings are, to make an impact on humanity in one form or another. But as you get older as well, the reality also dawns on you that you'll possibly one day, Lord willing, be a spouse and be a dad. And those people are going to rely on you for provision. And the reality is that no one's going to cushion you. It's all on you or nothing. There's no, I wouldn't say empathy, but there's no wiggle room as a man because you kind of have to provide, protect, and guide the family. So it's that sense of sort of duty that provides a weightiness to wanting to make sure that It's not about you, but there's a bigger goal at stake here.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering if that pressure, is it a crushing pressure, you know, or is it one that's more positive where, you know, it really encourages you every single time you wake up. You're like, okay, I get to be a provider, so I need to go out and work. So from a feeling perspective, how is it?
It looks different in different seasons of life. I mean, there's been times where I've been under the weather and I was like, you know, what am I doing all of this for? And then there's times where it motivates you because you own it and you feel a sense of ownership to know that this is the legacy you will leave behind. So yeah, it looks different in different seasons.
That makes sense. And I guess, do you ever go through your tough seasons in the office and then that pressure then becomes, oh, I just hate that I'm a man in this moment? Because I think it's different, right? And I'm not saying that all women experience this, but I don't think women necessarily have the same burden of saying I have to provide. I think if you're saying that you have to provide, it's most probably more circumstantial, you know, coming from a particular socioeconomic background. But it's not because one day I have to take care of my spouse or my children who aren't yet here. So I'm just wondering, do you have those moments where it's just difficult and you hate the fact that you're a provider essentially?
Definitely not hate it. I think there's a sense of ownership. So I own it and it probably keeps me going because those are the things that help you persevere. A greater sense of purpose is what keeps you going in the very difficult trenches. And every career, unfortunately, as illustrious as some careers are, will have, you know, difficult seasons.
And I think maybe as a follow-up to that, have you had a specific moment, and I think, I mean, you've worked in investment banking, you know, these are really high pressure environments. Have you ever had a specific moment that you can maybe share with us where you're saying, I'm here, but I don't want to be here, but I just can't afford to fail?
If I reflect back on my earlier days at work, I would say the first 5-6 years were the toughest and some of the most darkest periods of my life. For a confluence of factors, I don't think I can pin it to one precise factor. But again, I think it's those hard knocks, it's those difficult, high pressurized situations that build the resilience that you'll need to thrive in anything you do in life.
I love how you always, it's like you almost rewrite the script.
Yes.
You're saying that, okay, it is tough, but I'm not going to give into the fact that it's so tough. It still comes back to the fact that I have a responsibility, and I guess I have a way that I intend to show up.
100%, because it's all about perspective at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You can either, you know, buckle under the weight of pressure or choose to navigate circumstances in your favor.
No, and I think I can respect that. But, you know, given all this pressure that you face, have you ever had a moment where you felt unseen? It's a matter of, I work so hard, I sacrifice so much. I actually even remember, I think it was last year sometime, you had made a post saying that, gents, we are buckling up, Saturdays are for studying. And at that time I'm thinking, you work in investment banking, your weeks are so intense, and I'm sure you work weekends as well. So have you just ever had that period where you just weren't seen? You know, because I can imagine that words of affirmation and just being seen in your efforts sort of helps with the weight sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. Kind words definitely go a long way. But when it comes, I'll tackle the question in two phases. So maybe firstly, being seen. I don't really thrive off human affirmation. I think for me, given my faith background, there's definitely only one person's opinion that matters. And for me, that's the Lord's. So that's maybe the first part of it. Also reflecting on the question from another angle is, you know, you're doing the right thing, but you're not getting the traction you desire. Maybe let me frame it in that sense. Yeah, I think that's part and parcel of life. There's definitely been seasons where you're working hard, respecting senior authorities, and you're really sowing so that you can reap in due season, but you're just not getting the traction you desire. So yeah, I think the earlier parts of my career felt like that, as though things were moving much slower than I'd anticipated.
And how did you deal with that, you know, those feelings? Because I think the feelings are there. It's just maybe with women, it's more socially acceptable to be expressive of those feelings and to deal with it in public is not, you're not going to be shamed
100%.
about it. So I'm just wondering, how did you deal with the emotional aspect of that slower building of the career, respecting seniors and feeling like, "Ugh, I'm not really getting the kind of influence that I want."
So I think it helps to have a circle of trust. It helps to have mentors because you can bounce things off and realize that the struggle is not unique to you. Other people have, in hindsight, also gone through what you're going through. Because often in the moment it seems like this is unique to you and no one else understands.
Yeah,
but as you
definitely.
open up and develop that circle of trust with a few trusted individuals, you realize that the struggle is common amongst professionals in the corporate world. And this is maybe an encouragement to brothers out there that it's not wise to suffer in silence and be all macho, because at some point you'll break down under the weight of pressure.
Yeah.
So I definitely encourage people to have that circle of trust and have guys who've gone ahead of them, who've walked the path, mentor and bounce ideas off, so that they can help them navigate the circumstances in whatever season they find themselves in.
And you never felt that it was tough for you to open up?
No, fortunately, I wear my sleeve now. No, I don't have an issue with opening up. I used to back in university days, but I realized that the Lord has placed us in community, to walk with one another and help each other navigate the complexities of life. So I'm very fortunate to have a very strong support system that often works as a cushion for me.
So what happens then when a man specifically says that, okay, they want to open up, but they just don't have that circle of trust or of influence of, fellow people who have walked the journey, and they can say, okay, this person will understand, or they won't judge the fact that I feel this way and won't look at me as, okay, you're not being a man, you're being weak. So what is the guidance for that kind of person?
It takes being vulnerable to that, confidence. And we all have friends, friends who know us for different things, be it may. But it helps to have at least that one close individual that you can open up to, who can also help you think rationally through circumstances, because often you can make a mountain of a molehill where your problems seem much bigger than they are, only to find that when you take a back seat and get further perspective, that there's a moment of clarity. Yeah.
And I guess it's also an encouragement to say that even if you don't have maybe a friend who you would necessarily cry to, try see if you can develop that dynamic.
100%.
Because I find that men, you can say you have 7 friends, but then you're like, okay, who do you talk to when things are tough? And they're like, I don't speak to the bros about that, I guess. And have you ever had, a private breakdown? I mean, you don't have to give us all the details, but I'm just wondering, when things were bad, did you actually take the time out to say, I think I'm crashing out and I'm allowing myself to do that? Because I don't think, once again, as women, we even are expressive about these experiences. It's not an issue at all. But I'm just wondering, when things get bad, just because you are human, things will become bad sometimes. Have you ever just got into a place where all chips were down? And sort of like, how did you come out of that dark place?
Wow. I mean, there's been a few, but I think the one that's most distinct is 2019. It was a very stressful period, both work and in terms of personal life. I lost a very close family member, suffered unfair labor practices. So there was a lot going on in that year specifically. But again, I'm fortunate that I have a strong support system and that I don't suffer in silence. I open up, and that works as a cushion. But that year got bad enough to send me into hospital. And that's when I knew that, I had to reassess priorities and come up with a different game plan.
Wasn't that moment one where you're like, okay, I really have to, as I push through in my desire to be this provider, to do what I have to do, I also really need to just prioritize myself as a person? I'm assuming maybe that may have been your turning point.
Points of inflection.
Yeah.
So fortunately, I think in earlier breakdowns, I was forced to take a step back and develop and inculcate very productive habits, which were a bit of a plug and play when I started working. So I wouldn't say it was a lack of prioritizing self. I just think it was navigating circumstances that were beyond me at the time.
Yeah.
But again, it's the school of hard knocks that helps you get up and learn to develop that resilience to navigate different seasons of life.
So now I want to shift a little bit. Still related, but I think this one will even also be a difficult question to answer because it makes it seem like you're putting yourself on a higher ground. But would you say that, or let me put it this way, how did it feel like being the first person to make it? Whether you were the first person to make it to a really elite university or a really elite, in fact, let's put it in the context of work, how did it feel like to be the first person, whether in your family or even just amongst the gents, to just be around that kind of space? And do you feel like you had to leave people behind in order to continue to be this ambitious person who's driven to provide, who's driven to, be stable in whatever way that looks like for you?
I like the last part, in whatever way that looks like for me. Because it's true, we all have different life aspirations, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I do come from a family that has mixed successes. My great-grandfather, Don Mabuya, was a very successful businessman. He had general merchandisers, he had buses, he had a mortuary. My great-grandfather, Lungelo Makhathini, was also in his own right a very successful businessman in general merchandising. So yes, I might have been the first to probably take on a high-profile corporate job, but there were examples of people that have been successful in their own right. And in your latter part of the question, that I have to leave people around to keep aspiring and pushing my ambition. It looks different in different seasons, once again, right? There's people where you realize that, our goals and our lifestyles are no longer in congruency. So it makes sense, to accept that that's where the friendship is at that phase in time.
You're not going to fight for it?
Even if you do, there's almost nothing, underpinning that anymore.
Okay.
So it's probably not worth it. But I mean, you still maintain contact in a cordial manner. But the friendship circles that you tend to occupy will vary depending on what season of life you're in.
So you got to a point where you're like, no non-banker friends?
No, definitely not. Funny enough, most of my friends are not bankers.
Really?
Yeah.
You need to teach me.
Yeah.
I have a high concentration of bankers in my circle.
Something's wrong.
Yeah, it definitely feels wrong. Okay, so I get the part of leaving other people behind, but what do you think you had to leave behind about who you are in order to operate at this, I guess, different level?
I've never ever thought about having to leave a part of who I am to sort of pursue my ambitions. I see it as one, because there's a bigger purpose behind why I work. It's not just to put food on the table. We can get into that some other day, but I don't feel I've had to compromise who I am to pursue my ambition per se. I do stand for my values, I do stand for my faith, and those are driving forces behind why I exist and do what I do. I think if I was willing to sort of be a bit corruptible, I'd probably be further, in fact. I argue I'd be further.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, being the good guy, good guys.
It's got its costs. It's got its costs in our society.
Yeah. And that's just real talk, actually.
It is.
Okay. You mentioned how you're a person who believes and issues around faith.
100%.
And I just wanted to understand if that has in any way at least helped you. What role has it played in being this person who's working an incredibly demanding job under immense pressure? How has faith sort of, I guess, helped you navigate that?
So the first one is probably not to take yourself too seriously and realize that as much as we work hard and we plan and we strategize to advance ourselves in whatever way that is, there is a sovereign God who is at work. So I don't have to carry the weight on my own. And then the next probably part of it is being disciplined and principled, to treat others as you would want them to treat you, and not to give in to the corporate toxicity of backstabbing and throwing people under the bus.
Yeah, and you haven't gotten backlash to say that you're so soft, like you're one of the...
All the time.
Is it?
All the time. One of the bosses who I won't name was like, you'll realize that living out your Christian principles in this environment, there'll be things that you'll be required to do that will require that you compromise.
Yeah.
And so I realized that no, this is Yeah, I'd rather advance at God's pace
Yeah.
than to pursue my agenda aggressively at the
Yeah.
cost of compromising.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Because I think there's an issue of conscience now.
100%.
Even just attached
Even
to
legacy. Legacy.
Sure.
People remember how you treat them. And the tables turn very quickly.
They don't remember the bonuses and the quick promotions and the fancy client. No.
When I'm 6 feet under in my grave and they're reading my eulogy, trust me, it's not all going to matter. But it's the legacy I've left behind in how I've impacted people, specifically those who are closest to me.
Sure. In as much as you live in that world,
100%.
the reality, and I think we've both experienced, is that a lot of people don't they don't uphold Christian values or whatever religious sect that they
may.
Exactly. So how do you then advise that kind of person to deal with the pressure? Because I remember speaking to one of my friends and she was saying to me, Mamello, I don't know how to advise a person who doesn't believe, because the problems that we're facing at our age are just, if you don't believe, it's very difficult for me to advise you. But I still think that there's still a piece of wisdom or an insight that can be shared even with those who don't believe. And I just want to get it from you to say, how do you advise a person who's under crushing pressure, but they don't really subscribe to any form of like religion, exactly, or any belief?
Don't take yourself too seriously. It's not that deep. God keeps making the same things happen over and over again. The struggles you face are not unique to you. Someone has faced what you faced down the line, and they've been able to navigate. So it's usually not as bad as you think it is.
Yeah.
So that's maybe a pearl of wisdom I'd give someone, because often we think we're the saviors of the world, and that we're here on such an important mission that if we don't carry it out, it's all doom and gloom.
Yeah.
But it's not that serious.
Okay, you really just are
dots.
A dot.
You're a speck of dust.
Okay, no, appreciate it. So I think maybe just in wrapping up what we've been speaking about around the pressure to provide, which often happens in silence. What would you tell 21-year-old Lungelo around this topic? What's one thing that you would say to him to say, hey boy, this is just one thing you need to know about pressure, about providing, about your manhood?
So, hey boy, 21-year-old.
Literally.
Definitely that life is a pressure cooker. And it doesn't stop. The various seasons, as you progress, the pressure just increases, I've found. However, I think it's good to take life in bite sizes. They say the best way to eat an elephant is to eat it in bite sizes, right? Oh, okay. So the challenges that you face are not unique to you. They've been faced by other people in the past. So I definitely think, summing it up, that I would definitely say, don't take myself too seriously and take life in bite sizes. And
what's one thing you wish the world would understand, both men and women, about men and the pressure they face to provide? And I guess just even how that manifests in the workplace.
No, it's a real pressure, given that that's how we're measured as men. There's no wiggle room. So let's realize that we all have aspirations in life, but instead of making each other's lives difficult, let's realize that we all at work for a mission. And it looks different, right? Depending on your station of life and where you are. So the pressure to provide for men is a real thing, because there's no one to cushion you. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. No, thank you so much, Lungelo.
All right.
What a rich discussion. I think you filled a conversation that can be very bland and we struggle, yes, we have to work hard, and you filled it with so much passion and I think so much soul. And I think what I'm taking away from this conversation is, I think, to have a bit more compassion. I think to extend a bit more grace. I think even in the terms of the expectations that we have of our male colleagues, and maybe just even the way that they show up, because I think it's so easy to say to someone, oh, you're complaining. If you're not happy, leave. Like if no one's forcing you to be here, But I do think that, as I said, everyone has different pressures and there's reasons why we all work. But I think it's been quite valuable for you to add that layer, to say that there's also the gendered layer to it, to basically say that we actually have this pressure to provide. So it's, you can't just be as flexible, I guess, as maybe other people who don't face the same pressure. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mamello. I hope it's been insightful
Yeah.
to the listeners, and I hope it's a safe space, and will obviously encourage others to be a bit more vulnerable to their male others, and discuss these things.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it, everyone. That marks the first episode of Unspoken, which we had with Lungelo. I really enjoyed the conversation. I think it's definitely challenged me and the views that I have of my male colleagues. I think from a perspective of saying that these are actual people, just beyond their deliverables. I've always known that, but I think the passion and the heart in which Lungelo led with this afternoon was just so inspirational. So thank you so much for joining. That marks the end of this episode. I hope to see all of you guys in next week's episode of Unspoken with Mamello Rantseuoa.